SoftBank's long-awaited multi-billion-dollar investment in Uber is now complete. The Japanese tech investor led a consortium for the $9.3 billion deal with the ride-hailing service. That includes a $1.25 billion direct investment into Uber, with the rest going to the company's existing shareholders. The consortium will take a stake of more than 17% in Uber, with SoftBank alone getting 15%. That makes it the firm's largest shareholder. As part of the deal, former CEO and co-founder Travis Kalanick has sold 29% of his shares, worth around $1.4 billion. This pushes his net worth to $4.8 billion. The investment will likely lead to major management changes at Uber. SoftBank is also urging it to exit unprofitable countries and focus more on its core markets in the United States and Europe. For more on this, let's go to Chris Roebuck, who joins us from London. He's the visiting Professor for Transformational Leadership at the Cass Business School. Welcome, as always, Chris. Great to have you on the show. Travis Kalanick, got to start with him. Does it bother you that the man who arguably got Uber into this mess is now an actual billionaire rather than just a paper billionaire?
I think you have to look at this sort of in two parts. You have to look at it from the perspective of Kalanick, the entrepreneur who had quite a good idea, and you have to look at it from the perspective of Kalanick, the corporate leader. I think what's happening here is that Kalanick, the entrepreneur, is getting a return on what he did in terms of coming up with Uber and starting the journey. I think what is interesting, though, is you could say because of all of the scandals around sexism, spying on reporters, covering up data breaches and all the rest of it, he's not a particularly effective leader. So what's happened is he's out. To be blunt, if he'd have actually been a better leader, he would still be in, still be the chief executive, and probably the shares he has would be worth a lot more.
Now that SoftBank is the biggest shareholder in Uber, they have billions of dollars more to play with. Last month, the EU ruled that it had to be considered a transport company, meaning that it will probably have to pay its drivers more. Will this new cash injection, do you think, be used to make these kinds of transformations? And is it the start of Uber really becoming a mature adult company now?
I think you've summed it up perfectly in that last phrase of yours, which is becoming a mature company rather than, to some degree, someone's toy and plaything. And that's the journey that all organizations have to go on, moving from the entrepreneurial world to the corporate world. And it's the challenges that transition has that Uber's going through. And absolutely, you know, if you take Kalanick out the equation, that transition into turning an idea into something that can then be scaled is critical. And it's that scaling point where the cracks start to appear, and that's what happened. At that point, the intervention of bigger players who can bring stability, who can bring resources, who can bring insight and understanding is critical. One of the key things about SoftBank is it's not just the fact that they're putting some money in, it's also that they have got a couple of people on the board as well. So within that, the quality of the leadership team's been upped again, the resources financially have been upped. So I think it's now a sort of springboard for the next phase of Uber's development.
SoftBank is urging it to get out of places like Asia, where it's been burning through lots of cash, and to focus on US and Europe. Does that make it then not so much of a growth company anymore?
I think it's probably likely that it's going to potentially grow more slowly. You know, this is the thing about being a global. You've got markets all over the place, and the markets have different barriers to entry. They have different return rates. So, yeah, OK, Asia, much more competitive because anyone can get into the market.
Right.
Whereas Europe is much more regulated than USA, so it's more difficult to get in, but once you're in, you have fewer competitors.
Ah, interesting. Chris Roebuck from the Cass Business School. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.